1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to Gamers Overdrive Retro Mode. Kick back and relax while I blast you back in time and guide you down a pixelated, coin-operated, button-mashing memory lane paved with joysticks, consoles, and dusty old cartridges. Where good guys are always good guys, bad guys are always bad guys, and the fate of the universe lies in your hands. Time to kick it into overdrive. Retro mode. Insert coin to play.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Gamers Overdrive Retro Mode. I'm your host, Johnny Retro. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to the channel for weekly retro gaming content. That intro was not totally random. Today I'm talking about controllers, and that controller that you saw that monkey blasting away on is the Dobi Taiko controller. It's a third-party controller for a game called Taiko no Tatsujin. It's a drum rhythm game. It's really fun. But I bought this online, and it turned out to be a total piece of crap. It worked twice, and then it just completely stopped working. So that's one of the dangers that comes with getting third-party hardware, is that sometimes they just don't work. So at least I made a cool intro though. Now, the controllers that you see around my neck here are important for one reason. I'm kind of reviewing today the legacy that they eventually created. So this controller here, you might recognize it. This is the Sega Genesis controller. This comes with the Sega Genesis Mini, and it's really, it feels good. The D-pad is awesome, but it's limited. You know, it has 3 buttons, and it's really only good for playing Genesis games, old Genesis games. Eventually those games were they required a new type of a controller because games were getting more complex and 3 buttons wasn't cutting it. So they upgraded it to 6 buttons. And now what you're looking at here is a third-party controller, but it's made by an amazing company called Retrobit. And Retrobit is officially licensed by Sega to make replicas of their original controllers, and this is an amazing replica of a 6-button Genesis controller. It feels just like the original. It's really, really, really good, and it's USB, so you can really use it with any kind of a RetroPie setup, your PC. It works with PS3, and kind of any emulator setup you have going on, it will most likely work. So that's a really highly recommended controller, but the preferred controller for Johnny Retro for playing retro games, especially 2D fighting games, is the Sega Saturn controller. I've always loved the Sega Saturn controller. It's my favorite controller. As I mentioned before, third-party controllers are always an option, but they're hit or miss. So these two right here, I bought these from AliExpress, and they are totally generic. They have the same form factor as the original Sega Saturn Japanese controller. And I say Japanese controller because the original Sega Saturn, the American release, had this weird blob of a controller that was not good for anything. But these ones are, they feel a lot like Saturn controllers. So they have that going for them, but again, sometimes they just don't work very well. For some reason, this black one tends to work a little bit better than this one. But it's really ideal for PC emulation and also RetroPie gaming. So that's what you would want to go with a third-party controller that you don't really care that much about. They're very cheap. These were like a couple of bucks. If you want a third-party controller that actually has really high quality, I would go with Retrobit, and their entire line of controllers are just amazing. As I showed you before, this is the Genesis, the 6-button controller. And again, this is available on Amazon.com and many other places. Highly, highly recommend it. This works so well. But if you want something a little more premium, you can always go with this little bad boy right here. And this is... Dun, 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 dun. It's the Retrobit Sega Saturn 2.4 GHz wireless controller. And it comes in this really premium looking case, and it's really fancy, so you feel like a pro pool player when they take out their pool cue and they screw it together. When you're taking out your stupid controller, you can just open your box, and here you can take a look inside. I opted for the clear version. I thought that was pretty cool. And if you look here, there are 2 dongles that it comes with. One is, really interestingly enough, a Sega Saturn dongle. So if you have a real Saturn with the original hardware, you can plug this right into it, and the controller will work just like a Saturn controller for the actual Saturn. And what this one is a USB dongle, and this can go into your PC. It works for PS3, which is important for me, and it also works for a Nintendo Switch. So what you do is you just kind of plug it into your setup. It has a little sync button over there. There's a button combination that you press on the controller itself. Once it sets up and starts blinking and then stops, you're good to go. And it's all right here in the manual, which comes inside the box. And I have to say, just from playing around with this controller, I am extremely impressed. It's totally wireless, it's chargeable, it has a rechargeable battery that lasts a really long time. Feels really, really comfortable in the hands. The D-pad is amazing. It's kind of a perfect D-pad. Not overly clicky, but not overly mushy either. It's kind of perfect. It's got this pretty cool color setup there, and it's clear. And it just feels like what I remember a Saturn controller is supposed to feel like. It also works on the Polymega console, which is coming out next month, which I hope to do a review on. I've been waiting a very long time for that. And that's really important because that plays Saturn games. So, to get the real kind of retro, nostalgic Saturn feel, there's really nothing better than this. This is where it's at. I'm going to show you some gameplay with this and show you how it works with the PS3. And PS3 is really ideal to use this for, especially considering that a lot of original Saturn games have been remade for the PS3 with HD graphics. So this is like a perfect kind of modern way to emulate Saturn in a way that won't hurt your eyes, because really some games from Saturn don't hold up very well. The 3D ones, they look kind of rough. It was always better, the Sega Saturn was always better at 2D games, which is why the 2D fighting games for it are legendary. They're arcade perfect, and they're amazing. And this is really ideally set up for fighting games, just for like Street Fighter, the Marvel vs. Capcom series. It's perfect. So again, cannot recommend this enough, and I might as well just go ahead and give it my rating right now. Overdrive rating for this bad boy right here. Highly recommend it. So let's take a look at some gameplay, and here we go. We have the Sega Saturn 2.4 GHz wireless controller by Retrobit for the PS3, Nintendo Switch, PC. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. Alright, so here we are looking at the box here. This is the slate gray Sega Saturn 8-button arcade pad, 2.4 GHz wireless by Retrobit. And let's take a look at it in action for the PS3. So here I have it all set up. Now it takes maybe a couple of minutes to set up. All you have to do is put it into the USB, put your dongle into the USB port, hold down that little button on it, and sync it up with the controller. And I think you have to hit down and B. I did it a couple of days ago, but you hold it down until the light disappears. And it's really easy, but if you do have a PS3 Slim model, it does have one little caveat to that. The way that the PS3 Slim is designed, It's not ideal for this type of a dongle accessory, so you might have to use a little credit card or something to slip in to hit that sync button. But once you do it, take a look. I'm now controlling the UI here. This is the PS3 UI, and it works just like any other controller would, just like a PS3 controller would. It's really, really smooth. And let's take a look and let's see if I can play some games over here. Now, if you do have a setup with your PS3, just make sure there's no physical obstruction between the controller and the dongle, just so you can have a nice line of sight and for the connection. I have a whole bunch of Saturn games. This is Nights into Dreams, very good game. Works perfectly with this controller, of course. Just for the total nostalgia package, it's nice to have a controller that is designed the way that you remembered playing it. Here I have Marvel vs. Capcom 2. That was not on the Saturn, that was a Dreamcast and arcade game. Plays, again, perfectly with this. Here you see Third Strike, Street Fighter Third Strike. Any kind of fighting game really is going to do really well with this controller. Marvel vs. Capcom Origins I have here on the PS3. Plays perfectly. Another Saturn game, I have Virtua Fighter 2. Daytona USA. You know, these, of course, you can play these with the PS3 controller just fine, but it is a nice touch to be able to play with the controller that they were kind of designed for. So why don't we go ahead and play, let's do, Marvel vs. Capcom Origins. I think this game has been taken off the PS3 store. I don't think it's available for sale anymore due to some licensing stuff. That happens a lot, unfortunately, with downloadable games. That's one of the arguments I hear a lot against downloading games as opposed to getting the physical copies. But I still personally prefer downloading games just for the saving space issue. They don't take up any space, and also nobody can steal them. Nobody can break into your house and steal digital games. So that's a big plus for me. So I'm going to hit start here, and let's take a look at this controller in action. Really love this game. I've always loved all of these, the 2D Capcom Versus series. They're just so well made. It's a perfect match. It's really just to have, the Street Fighter characters with the Marvel characters. It just makes sense to me. And it plays really well. So I did my old team here, Ryu and Wolverine, and I'll just show you how this plays a little bit. And it is just awesome. So yeah, I mean, it's and it sets up automatically the way that it should be set up, with the light, medium, and hard punches on the top row here. So those would be right up here, and the light, medium, and hard kicks on the bottom right here. So it's kind of just ideal. It's an ideal setup. You don't have to strain your hands at all, and it just really, I can't think of a better way to play these games. It makes sense. It's almost like this controller was designed specifically to play these games. So if you want to avoid the headache of wires and you just want something wireless, you can sit on your couch without thinking about and just know that it's going to work very well, because these controllers, Retrobit has done an incredible job, and I think the licensing by Sega really helps just with the quality of the overall product. They work very well. They also have updates that you can kind of update the driver if something is off a little bit. It might be due to something that they've fixed, maybe a bug that's been fixed, and you can go to their website and just update through the dongle itself, plug it into your PC, and download the latest driver. So while I was talking there, Wolverine was totally destroyed that dude, and I wasn't even thinking. I'm on autopilot. But yeah, I just really... Now remember, Retrobit has a whole series of retro controllers, and constantly more that they're working on. There was some talk, I think, for a while on a Dreamcast controller, which would be awesome. It would be nice to be able to play it, with a Dreamcast controller on certain games, just for nostalgia, because the Dreamcast controller is not an ideal controller by any stretch, but it does feel cool, just for authenticity's sake, to play Dreamcast games with a Dreamcast controller. So again, just don't want to show too much gameplay here. It's not a review of the game. It's a review of the controller. And again, it's an overdrive rating. This controller is awesome. I highly, highly recommend it. Retrobit, looking forward to anything else that you do in the future. You have a fan here. So keep up the great work. And that's all for this episode of Gamers Overdrive Retro Mode. So take care, everybody, and I'll see you next time.